Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and today we are going to take a look at this weekend's new moon in the sign of Pisces. Tomorrow, I will be taking a look at Mercury's conjunction with Neptune, which is also coming over the weekend, also in the sign of Pisces. And we will be refreshing on the whole sign house placement of both the new moon and the Mercury Neptune conjunction through the whole sign house horoscope. So that will be tomorrow to cap off the week. Today, I'm really excited to be talking about this new moon. I think there's a bunch of features that make this new moon really interesting. So we'll be looking at those. And then I will be turning my attention to synthesized themes. So we're going to look at sort of the galaxy brain details, and then we're going to talk about synthesized themes coming off from those. That way, people who are interested in learning more about the technical analysis of a new moon can learn more. It's really interesting stuff for those people who are kind of, hobby students of astrology, but also for people who just want the takeaways, what to watch for. We'll make sure we include those as well. So anyway, that is our goal for today. Before we get into it, as always, don't forget to gently caress and warm the like button with your loving touch. And then share your comments and reflections if you've got them. If you're new to the channel, we hope you will subscribe and share your thoughts and reflections as we go. You can find a transcript of any of my daily talks always on the website nightlightastrology.com, where you can also learn more about all of our upcoming programs. I want to take you over there right now because one thing that is coming up quickly is our next monthly webinar. We're doing a new webinar series once a month that is open to anyone of all levels and all abilities. If you go to the events page, click on live talks or the shop page, you'll find the recordings of previous talks as well as the upcoming talks. Here it is, March 14th, Neptune in love. As the Sun and Neptune are starting to get together in a conjunction, and we're talking a lot about Neptune in the next coming days in the sign of Pisces here with the Mercury-Neptune conjunction. We're going to talk about what Neptune does and how it shows up, what it has to teach us, how we can work with it, when it is involved either in our natal chart or by transits to the natal chart in the subject of love, sex, and relationships. So if you want to register for this, it is March 14th from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern time. It's a $20 registration fee. If you cannot make it live, you get a recording of the talk sent to you afterward that you can watch. And the other thing is that you can attend the live webinar that evening from 7 to 9 p.m. That once you register, a link is sent to you either way. So you can get the recording afterward or attend live. Anyway, I hope to see some of you there. And don't forget to check out the Pluto in Love talk if you missed it. And also just be aware that we have a new shop page that contains all of our prior masterclass series. It's 8 to 10 hours of content per masterclass series. You can hop in on the early release of my book, chapter by chapter, and audio and text files in the Oracle Speaks. I'm working on chapter 5 right now. So lots of good stuff in that new shop page as well. The other thing that I want to turn you on to is Ashley's new herbal apprenticeship program. So her herbal apprenticeship starts April 24th. You can find it on skyhouseherbs.com. Go into the courses tab, click on Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship. You'll scroll down and learn more about it, all of the modules. The class is pre-recorded, but then throughout the modules, Ashley holds Q&A and tutoring sessions so that you can check in and have questions answered and work with her more personally throughout the module recordings. At the bottom, you'll find that there are early bird discounts in effect, as well as payment plans and need-based tuition like we have for all of our programs. That herbal apprenticeship program starts April 24th. And if you hang around at the end of today's program afterward, you'll find an interview that I recorded with Ashley that I have been tagging on to the end of my videos for people who are interested in learning more about Ashley, her program, the work of plant spirit medicine in general. So stick around for that if you're interested. Okay, well, on that note, let us head over to the real-time clock where we can take a look at this new moon. Here we have it. I'm going to point out some of the technical features of this new moon in Pisces, which is coming through early Sunday morning. This is Central Time, about 10 after 4 in the morning that you start seeing that conjunction pass through. That's Central Time. So, it's probably around 5 Eastern and 2 in the morning Pacific in the USA. But anyway, it comes through over the weekend. We're preparing ourselves for it now and tomorrow when we look at Mercury's conjunction with Neptune, which you will see, if I just back this up by a day, you can see that Mercury's conjunction with Neptune comes through Friday, March 8th, tomorrow, through Saturday, March 9th. So we're talking about that tomorrow as well. as the new moon today. Um, so, what are the main features of this new moon that I think are worth paying attention to? It is not quite as galaxy brained as some of the last couple of new moons that were so strongly configured with aspects. There are some interesting aspects going on here, but here are the features of the new moon in Pisces that I think we ought to be paying attention to. One is that this is a new moon in the domicile of Jupiter and the exaltation of Venus. That's Pisces for you. It's a feminine water sign, the home water feminine temple of Jupiter, and the exaltation of Venus. So you get a kind of Venus Jupiter flavor from the sign of Pisces. It is a hopeful, aspirational sign that seeks to wrestle light from the grips of darkness, which is why you often see the sign of Pisces associated with themes like redemption and faith and hope and magic and mysticism, usually with a sense of having to overcome some kind of struggle or wrestling match with one's own demons, or with a feeling of being divinely dissatisfied with the way that things are going. And there's a real romantic struggle in the sign of Pisces. It's very beautiful. Anyway, I've talked at length about the sign of Pisces in many other videos, so I'm not going to speak so much about Pisces per se, but Jupiter Venus. What's important about Jupiter Venus? Well, remember that what we have in about 1 day after the new moon is Venus entering her exaltation in Pisces, where she now has mutual reception with Jupiter. So the domicile and exaltation ruler of Pisces, Jupiter and Venus, Venus will be entering the sign of Pisces, where she is exalted, very well dignified, and in Jupiter's sign, whereas Jupiter will be in Taurus, which is Venus's sign. So you have Venus and Jupiter working together. Now, what have we been saying really for the past couple of moon cycles? This is the year, the early part of 2024 is all about Venus. And it's all about Venus vis-a-vis Jupiter and Uranus moving to a conjunction in Taurus by late April. Right now, we have a moon cycle that is amplifying and really driving home the importance of Venus and Jupiter. What are they looking for? Beauty, flow, opulence, a sense of security and peace, ease and abundance. You think of all of the Venus-Jupiter combined words, coherence, elegance, grace, fertility, and wealth, enjoyment, sensual satisfaction, but also in Taurus, especially a sense of, kind of a grounded sense of stability and ease combined. So these two planets are working together now in a sextile with mutual reception in a cycle that begins in the home of Jupiter and Venus. Fantastic. What really nice themes to be driving the moon cycle. However, these are not the only themes, so there are going to be some little twists that we need to pay attention to. But the Pisces Taurus axis is about starting to wrestle our way out of the darkness of zodiacal winter. This is symbolic. Don't be too literal about it, because it really doesn't matter what hemisphere you're in. We're wrestling our way out of the tumultuousness of the last sign of zodiacal winter into the spring signs, where the major feature of spring, in addition to a big Aries solar eclipse coming up on April 8th, is the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus in Venus ruled Taurus on April 20th. So this cycle, starting here in early to mid-March, is ushering us into that dynamic spring energy that has been building for a while now, moving from a plane of ideals in Aquarius in the last cycle into a more a sense of embodied preparation for this big moment of Jupiter and Uranus conjoining in late April. Now, again, just kind of keeping that big story in mind is important when you're looking at the new moon cycle and what it brings. Let's try to qualify this a little bit more. The number two thing on my list to watch for here is the new moon is in the bound of Mars. So let's back this up just a little bit so we can see that new moon. You're going to see that the new moon is just peeking into the 20th degree, which is the bound of Mars. Oops, you know what? I have to take this banner off so you can see it. So it's just kind of peeking into the bound of Mars in late Pisces. Now, Mars is going to enter Pisces along with Venus later in the cycle. But what's really important to notice is at the time of this new moon, Mars is coming off less than half a degree off from a square to Uranus. In fact, watch if we back this up, how closely the exact square of Uranus is to the new moon. So let's go back a day, and we're going to see that the Mars Uranus square is forming on Saturday, March 9th. And if we go forward by some hours, we're going to see, here we go. So we have the square coming off by a minute of 1 degree by about 5 in the evening, Saturday, March 9th. That's Central Time. And you can see that at that point in time, the moon is within 5 degrees or so of the new moon. So that's why I'm saying, like, one of the key features of this new moon is the just recently separated Mars Uranus square, while the new moon is in the bound of Mars. So, what does that mean? What does a bound mean? People have been sometimes asking me, like, could you say more about what bound rulers are? Sure. So, here's a way of conceptualizing what a bound ruler is. First of all, you have all 12 signs broken into 5 unequal divisions. Every sign is 30 degrees of the 360-degree circle. So 12 signs times 30, you get the 360. It's an idealized circle. We know the solar year is not exactly 360 days, but it's an ideal circle that was thought of as a kind of Platonic shape. So anyway, in the zodiac, those 30-degree segments of the zodiac that we call the signs are broken into 5 unequal divisions. Those divisions are each assigned, like the first 4 degrees of this sign, the next 7 degrees of the sign, the next 3 degrees, like that. They are each assigned a planet that is said to be the bound or term or confine ruler of those degrees. Now, what you're thinking about is something sort of Saturnian, because one of the things we know about the bounds is that they were often used in timing techniques that would tell you the kind of nature when you're progressing a planet or sort of directing it through the bounds. You're thinking about how a planet moving through a sign symbolically over time will have to conform or will be somewhat limited in its expression by the nature of the planet that rules the degrees it's going through. So a bound ruler, I don't know, the easiest way that I've had to teach my students about how do you think about it? Think about it paradigmatically as a little bit like a Saturnian form of dignity, in that it suggests a kind of principle that the planet has to conform or shape itself to. I also once heard Robert Schmidt talk about it as the kind of, you could think about it like the etiquette that one is beholden to in, say, a tea ceremony when you enter somebody's house. Is it Japan that the tea ceremony is such a big deal? But something like that. It's a kind of an expectation or an expectation of conformity, that you have to, on a certain level, you're expected to conform to the codes, rules, expectations of the bound ruler. So it has a way of shaping the way the planet expresses itself. Now, that doesn't override or become more important than the other forms of dignity the planet is participating in, but it helps tone it. It helps shape it. It kind of sets a certain kind of limit around it. Okay, so when you have a new moon cycle that is in the bound of Mars, and Mars is just coming off from a square to Uranus, the cycle is toned by that kind of erratic, forceful, action-oriented, revolutionary quality. That's what we're saying. Even though it's a cycle in Pisces, which, so romantic, so sensual, so watery, emotional, compassionate, otherworldly, get all those kinds of Piscean themes that we're all very familiar with. If you consume astrology, you know something about Pisces. But this is a Piscean energy that has that kind of erratic live wire Mars-Uranus quality that the new moon cycle has to conform to. It is being shaped by it. What does that mean? I will tell you when we get to the synthesized themes, but it is important detail to pay attention to. The last detail that is worth paying attention to is, and by the way, one more thing, I actually want to say one more thing about bound rulers. The other way that you can think about, the other interesting reason that the bound rulers could be thought of as Saturnian is because the bound rulers do not include the sun or the moon, whose natural opposite is Saturn. So the exclusion of the sun and the moon from the scheme of the bounds is notable. And I think one way of thinking about that is that the natural factor that sort of negates, limits, or opposes the lights is Saturn. And we have the sun and moon, interestingly absent from this scheme. In addition to the fact that it was used as this way of understanding qualities of time that are being measured out, I like to think about the bounds as sort of Saturnian. That doesn't mean that they're rigid, but it does mean that planets in the bounds of another planet have to sort of conform somewhat or shape somewhat to the nature of that planet. But remember, the nature of the planet it is conforming to will also be you have to look at it in terms of where that planet is actually at. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. So new moon in the bound of Mars, as Mars is square to Uranus, is a very specific kind of expectation or etiquette or kind of set of boundaries that the new moon has to conform to. Hopefully that makes sense. So anyway, for last one on my list is that Saturn is being reborn. So watch what happens to Saturn as we just drag this moon cycle out a little bit. You're going to notice that Saturn is getting further away from the sun. By the time that the sun enters Aries on March 20th, not long after, that's the uh, spring equinox zodiacally, the sun will be about 18 degrees away from Saturn. It's about 15 on average that we start to see the planet appearing again from under the beams of the sun. That will take place as a morning star. So if you just rotate this a little bit, you're going to notice here that Saturn is rising above the ascendant and the sun is still below it. So you'll be able to see Saturn as a morning star. And that usually is like thought of as Saturn being reborn. Remember, we just talked at length over the past couple of weeks about Saturn dying. Now Saturn is being reborn. What does that mean? What does it mean to have a youthful or young Saturn? I like to think about it like, let's just say that you've gone through some kind of experience of initiation. Maybe the initiation involved death or loss or grief or hard work somehow internally, psychologically. When you're done with that, though, isn't it amazing how you just feel like, level 2.0, I've matured, I've grown up a little bit, and now I'm ready to get into the world with just some new insights and new abilities and new maturity. And there's an eagerness to acclimate to the world with the new skin you're living in, so to speak. So anyway, Saturn is being reborn during this cycle, and I think that's a feature that's really important to pay attention to, because a lot of what this cycle seems to be about is about the moving from an ideal sort of Venusian image that's continuing to shape and develop through the upcoming Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and a kind of erratic or chaotic energy that is more entangling and forces us to really make sure that the ideal and the real are being worked together in this upcoming Jupiter-Uranus breakthrough. So I'm going to say more about that now through this little section of synthesized themes. If all of that was too galaxy brain, then try these on for size. Synthesized themes. With a new moon in Pisces, you are going to see romantic, sensual, dreamy, hopeful, and fluid themes becoming more important. Maybe that appears through that kind of nostalgic, romantic sense of dissatisfaction that some of us get, a restlessness within. Sometimes that's going to be about wrestling with things that embody our sense of dissatisfaction. Like, for example, sometimes, I mean, this is just such a cliche, I hate to even say it, but like sometimes you start drinking a little bit more, you start indulging a little bit more when you're feeling stuck and you want to be in a better place, but there's maybe some impatience and restlessness and you're not there yet. And so we start reaching for things that somehow embody the sense of frustration we have and the entanglements that we're stuck in. And that's what you want to be really careful of in a Piscean moon cycle, where you don't want to look for an escape. This is sort of like, you can think about this as kind of like the last gestational phase before birth in the spring that comes through Aries. I think, for example, about like how uncomfortable Ashley was at the very end of the pregnancy. It was like, oh my God, get this thing out of me. You know, that sounds bad, but but there's a sense of like, there's something that's ready to be born, but I'm in this kind of churning and burning, and it's not quite there yet. And Pisces is kind of midwifing something, but it forces you to be in the entanglement. And in that entanglement, um, there's a lot. It's a beautiful place to be. Sensitivity is tremendously heightened. There's a hopefulness, there's an eagerness, there's a sense of something approaching that might be redeeming or uplifting or exciting or fulfilling in some way. But you're not quite there yet. You have to wrestle and churn and burn a little bit too. So just can we hold that tension during this next moon cycle as the moon cycle pushes us into eclipses, into Aries season, and into the Jupiter Uranus conjunction at the end of April. So I think it's a little bit of a liminal space that Pisces points us to. And can we learn and listen in that liminal space? Because some of the most important uh, final refining details and lessons occur in that space that will then truly help us to move into the period of breakthrough and sort of blast off that's coming in the next cycle. I like the second theme of wrestling light from dark. This is a cycle with Mars Uranus. Remember, Mars is the bound ruler, and Mars squaring Uranus at the very outset of the new moon. So I think about the struggle to free ourselves from something that has been limiting, the struggle to wrestle something to wrestle something out of the darkness. Now, the darkness could be wrestling something from unconscious into conscious understanding. It could be wrestling ourselves free from an undermining influence within ourselves or our environment. But you get this feeling in Pisces that Pisces has so much to do with the romantic and sort of chivalrous overcoming of darkness. I think so much in the tarot about the Knight of Cups with Pisces, this kind of romantic crusading quality. But whatever it is, the wrestling of the light from the dark can be a part of this cycle ahead. So much emphasis on Mars in Pisces, right? So much emphasis on Venus in Pisces, Mercury, Neptune at the outset of the cycle in Pisces. This is a space where it won't let us, just like Aquarius, like remember Venus in Aquarius, Mars in Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius, all these planets in Aquarius that were squaring, Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus. So much of that is idealistic. And it's about setting out the blueprints for the garden. I've been using that analogy a lot, or that image. This is more complex. This is about starting to wrestle with the actual earthly chaos and beauty and complexity and difficulties and the interplay of light and dark that is the embodied world, and starting to really go, I'm trying to build this thing that's so beautiful in my mind's eye, but I'm trying to build it in a place that is by its nature complicated and relationally sophisticated and complex. And I have to refine maybe what I'm looking at. That was actually number 4 on my list. So I'll jump to that. Reconciling Venusian ideals with earthly entanglements. Like, I know that you think of water and you don't think of earth because we get too linear, but actually earth and water are both considered yin. So they're both earthy. They're both earthly is what I mean. When we have all of this Piscean energy sextiling the Jupiter Uranus conjunction and coming out of very idealistic and abstract Aquarius, what we're talking about now is saying, okay, this thing is coming into matter. It's ready to be born. But now we have to work with labor, contractions. We have to work through that kind of tumultuous and sometimes tortured. Don't take me to the Akashic car wash for it. But yes, sometimes tortured middling space of Pisces. All the double-bodied signs are like that. They sort of take us through a transitional space from solid in the first 15 degrees, ancient astrologers said, to tropical or cardinal in the next 15 degrees. So we move from someplace relatively stable through a destabilization and through the initiation of something new. That's what the double-bodied signs are moving us through. This one, very Venusian, very Jupiterian, supporting the Jupiter-Uranus dynamic, but refining it by making us go through the complications of an ideal descending into the world. So just remember that this cycle, it's not here to kill your dream. It's here to make it possible, right? It's here to actually birth it, to go from, wouldn't it be nice to have kids, to being like, I'm up all night with a kid. And it's beautiful and amazing. It's completely opening my heart. All right, number 3, shocks and disturbances leading to greater emotional maturity or depth. I went from 1, 2, 4 back to 3. Remember that Mars Uranus tones the cycle. And so the cycle is starting off with this sort of swift, action oriented, revolutionary, maybe a little bit impulsive or impatient quality. It's a little abstract and ideal. And then everything gets watery. So, like, here's the idea. I'll just give you an image that comes to my mind right away. If I'm in a car ride and I'm like in dad mode and the kids are there and everything, and I'm trying to get to a space where everything is just like stable and we're cruising along and there's no like fighting and screaming and roll the window up, roll it down, turn the AC up, turn it down, whatever. I need a snack, I need to pee, blah, blah, blah. And if I just slam my fist down and get really angry and everybody just stop or whatever, I try to dad mode it and just get crazy. The thing is that then my 5-year-old will definitely start to cry. Right? Not a good idea, because then chaos ensues. She starts crying. The other one starts talking. My wife looks at me like she's really pissed that I didn't choose a more mature way of expressing myself. And she's right. I resent her because she's right. And now the chaos is just completely boiling over. I've never had this happen, by the way. This has never, ever happened. But you know what I mean? If you try to force things right now from the level of what you think something ought to be like, and you get gung-ho about it, it will lead to the complications of the world around you pushing back and saying, it's too impulsive, it's too idealistic, it's too white-knuckled, too controlling, and it's not taking into account the soupy mess of life. And if you don't reconcile yourself to that level, you're not really loving. And if you're not loving, you're not really enjoying, compassion, forgiveness, grace, acceptance, surrender. These are such important Piscean themes that will be coming up in relation to the kind of strong intensity of Mars Uranus. So we're going to see the potential for sort of like shock waves and intense things that happen suddenly and demand change, having to work together with a space that requires gentle, sensitive, emotionally mature, relationally aware responses. That's a big part of the cycle ahead. And then 5 is the need for emotional resilience. On the other hand, this is a cycle that if changes are demanded and changes have to come up, we can't be so precious, so sensitive that so easily triggered, in other words, that we can't be resilient, that we can't adapt, that we can't be flexible, that we can't shift or change. There is a tendency in the double-bodied water sign of Pisces to feel like you're falling apart, or the victim thing can get exaggerated. Not that there aren't real experiences of being like, victimized, right? But we want to be careful of feeling like, oh, woe is me. Can we be emotionally resilient? Is the other side of the story with Mars Uranus, Mars going through Pisces, Mars Uranus toning the cycle, etc. Things are going to come up that are not perfect, that are not ideal, or that force us to act quicker than we would like to, or that that may look or feel very different than what our emotional body needs. It's sort of like okay, let's go back to the car ride. So let's say we're in the car ride. Somewhere between not flipping out into bad dad mode, and on the other hand, not catering to every single whim, so we actually get there without getting there in 15 hours. For example, I have to use the bathroom. Well, we cannot stop until we're on a tollway or something, and it's going to be about 25 minutes. You're going to have to hold it for a little bit. Sometimes that happens. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm making this up, but there is a way in which sometimes we just have to be resilient and put up with something uncomfortable for the sake of reaching a higher goal. And that could be part of the cycle as well. Anyway, these are just thoughts, and I hope that they will hit close enough to the mark that this will have been a productive exploration of the new moon in Pisces. If you want, stick around today, because once I sign off, I will be sharing with you an interview that I did with Ashley. If you haven't seen it yet, I'll be running it at the end of my videos for a while, and as we run up to her program at the end of April. So stick around for an interview that I did with Ashley on her program, Plant Spirit Medicine, and what you might learn if you take her course. All right, that's it for today. I will see you guys again tomorrow. Bye. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for sticking around. I'm really happy to be joined by my wife, Ashley, who is an herbalist. Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
And yeah, I'm really excited to be helping Ashley promote her upcoming program, which is something that you actually began teaching many years ago, this herbal apprenticeship program. I think it was 2011 or 12 that it got started, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been over 10 years I've been offering this course. And yeah, it's my favorite thing to teach.
Yeah, and just to be clear, because some people on my channel, most people know you because you pop on here or there. We talk about herbs and astrology. There's an attraction in our marriage and an attraction in the subject matter that is old. Like we've been together for 14 years in our relationship going on, and we've always had a fascination with each other's areas of expertise, and we've done lots of things to marry them together over the years, in addition to literally getting married. And and actually, herbalists and astrologers have married the subjects of herbs and planets together for thousands of years as well. Now, your program is focused on, you know, uh, herbalism. It's not an astrology course, but there is certainly a lot of overlap in terms of the energetics and the spiritual approach to herbalism that you take. And so I was hoping that we could start off just by telling people a little bit about the program. You're coming to this after taking a little bit of time on maternity leave. Our kids were not yet in school. Now they are. You're coming back to work. This is really exciting. The new program launches at the end of April. I'm going to put it up on the screen so people can see it. You can find it at skyhouseherbs.com. Enrollment is open now. The course begins. You go under Courses, Herbal Foundations Apprenticeship at the end of April. Tell us about it.
Well, this course, I guess my goal in redesigning the apprenticeship course that I've been teaching for 10 years is to make it even more personal and to allow people to study the material, digest it at their own pace. So what it's going to be is a combination of kind of three main parts. The first one is the recorded material. So there's going to be modules that will be released and people can listen to them as they have time. The second part are live classes where we will meet live on Zoom and talk about the module, I'll answer questions, I'll give even more information about it. And then the third part is the sacred plant pairings. And so I've always taught the herbal portion, like the plant diets, one at a time, but this year I'm going to do it in pairs because I think you can learn a lot by comparing and contrasting herbs. So for every module, you'll have 2 herbs to study and you'll get a little cheat sheet about them before you start the module. And then you'll have an opportunity to work with those 2 plants and blend them and keep them separate and just really work with them closely. Because my goal is that I want people to be able to find information that they can really use in their own lives, maybe with clients, whether they have a professional herbal practice or maybe they're a therapist in a different field, that they'll know these plants so that they can work with them really comfortably.
I love the different modules that you have just so we can preview them for people. Module 1 is Vitalism and the Heart of Herbalism. Module 2, Building Your Home Apothecary. They're so diverse. I love Module 3 is my favorite, Plant Spirit Medicine. Energetics and chemistry. You have such a holistic approach. It's what I've always loved about your teaching. You'll teach about the doctrine of signatures. You'll talk to people about how to communicate with plants, how to think of them as teachers that are living beings that have personalities that aren't just phytochemistry or whatever, but you will also teach phytochemistry. And I think that you have this really well-rounded way of helping people be intelligent about the plants, about the body, about the systems of the body, but also not afraid to use energetic systems, not afraid to take something from the kinds of energetics that ancient mystics were working with, whether that's the elements or whether that's, some of the overlay with things like Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. You take what's useful on a symbolic and energetic plane and on a personal connection level with the plants, and you marry it to really smart scientific research. I think that's rare. You don't see that a lot.
Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, to me, it's all language. They're just different languages that we talk about the same thing. And I think the more diverse our languages as herbalists, the more we can reach more people. And that's kind of my goal. Like, I want everyone to be able to identify plants, use plants. So we need to diversify the languages we speak so we can talk with our physicians, so we can talk with a therapist, we can talk with a mystic, right? We can talk with children, and we have a language that everyone can use.
You talk in the program, in your modules, you have stuff on digestive and gut health, you have stuff on detoxification, colds and flus, and dealing with virus seasons. You talk about tissue states, and you're talking about how to give things to your kids for helping them maybe at times even relax before bed at night. We use a lot of different things with our kids. I love this, that you have called this a I'm going to find the phrase where you use, and I'm going to mess it up. A community herbalist. What is a community herbalist, so that people can understand that definition? Because sometimes people might look at a course like this and think, gosh, unless I go to an accredited university for 8 years and learn all about chemistry, I have no right or business suggesting herbs to people or using herbs. That's just not true. And that's not the history of how folk herbal medicine has been used or taught. So what do you mean when you say community herbalist?
I think you said it perfectly. This is the people's medicine, and our grandmothers and great grandparents used plants as medicine. There's nothing actually that like hard about the practice of herbal medicine. It's just getting to know the plants and getting to know the times when they're most useful. I really envision that this course, people can take it and, yes, use it for themselves, number one, because I think a lot changes when we have the personal experience, and then using it in your family, whether that's just, maybe making a tea for your dog, or, if you have kids, or maybe you just have a partner, maybe you have plants you can use, and we'll talk about taking care of a garden, but using it for yourself, for whoever's immediately around you, and then taking it beyond that, because it's likely that at some point you're going to be talking with someone. They're going to say, oh, I've got this digestion thing and I've tried this and this. And they might say, hey, you're studying herbs. Is there anything that you would recommend? And you know what? You'll probably have a few ideas. And that, you never know how one way that you help someone out there in the world might trickle and then help others and more people. So I think through the self-knowledge and studying this knowledge in your own body, it'll naturally, it's like, impossible for it not to spread out and start to affect the broader community.
Yeah, I think that's really important. This is also for that reason, because we have a vision. I mean, you guys know through my Kickstarter, you guys helped us build a community herbal medicine garden that Ashley's been hosting free and donation-based events out of, that the donations go right back into the garden and just growing the medicine that we then find ways of harvesting and giving to other people, or letting other people come and harvest. We have a vision, we always have, back to the days when we had our yoga studio in Maryland. We have always had a vision of making this sacred knowledge accessible to people. And that is both there in this program in terms of the way you're framing what it means to be an herbalist. It might mean that you're a professional and you see clients, and you could continue beyond this program developing the skills to do that. This would certainly set you up for success. You could also go forward and be someone who uses what you know with friends and family and yourself. And that's an incredible set of tools to have. The program's also very accessible from both a programming standpoint and a price standpoint. I'm going to take you back over and show everybody the programs. The modules are pre-recorded, but then you meet outside of the modules for discussion, community, Q&A, and sort of development and integration. So people can attend those live. If they miss those integration sessions, they can also watch the replays of those. So
absolutely, yeah.
Anyone could take this at their own rate, as slowly or as quickly as you wanted to, really soak it in, or blaze through it. And then we can certainly, beyond this program, as Ashley perhaps makes more advanced programs available as she's easing back in out of maternity leave, can help you with further development or recommend you to many other wonderful programs where you could continue your studies. We want this to be accessible. We want community herbalism to be, as simple as being able to show a friend a couple of yoga stretches. We should be able to show each other herbs, and just, hey, this is a helpful herb to use. Also, accessibility price-wise, we have an early bird enrollment, and we have standard enrollment. And then we have tuition level 1 assistance and tuition assistance level 2, which break out the affordable tuition into different levels of affordability. And you can kind of identify where you're at if you're someone who wants to take this program but needs to work within your means and not hurt yourself doing it. And then for those who can pay, we ask that you use standard or early bird enrollment. And that's the same thing I do for all my astrology programs. So we try to keep it super, super accessible. The Herbal Apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I know Ashley's super excited to be getting back into teaching too. I also would like to offer Ashley just a chance to tell everyone a little bit about, before we end here this interview, tell everyone maybe a little bit about your own background, who you studied with, what your influences are, and just anything else you want to say before we cap it off.
Ooh, okay. Well, I think, I started off as a kid playing in the woods, mixing perfumes and potions. And then I went on to study environmental science, where I studied organic chemistry and restoring native wetlands. And really from an environmental perspective, that's how I got into herbalism. And then after, I realized after working on the restoration piece and joining a lot of earth advocacy groups that the problem's not with the earth, but with the people not understanding the value of the earth. So then I started going into holistic medicine. I graduated from University of North Carolina, Asheville, with a degree in interdisciplinary studies. And I went on to get my that was my undergrad, and then I got my master's from the Maryland University of Integrative Health. It was then called Tai Sophia. But my teachers there, I had such a great blend of teachers, really scientific minds, like Simon Mills from the UK and Kevin Spellman, who is like a chemistry genius, who's also an Ayurvedic practitioner, who studied with Dr. Vasant Lad. Matthew Prisco, medicine maker from Galen's Way out in California. So I had a really wonderful, diverse variety of teachers in that 3-year full-time master's level program. And then after that, I went on to study with Matthew Wood pretty intensively because I liked his energetics. I liked the way he spoke about the plants and his personal experience working with low dose, drop dose medicine. And he has had amazing he's done such amazing work herbally with just using that method. And gosh, I could I've got a lot of herbalists in my
David
basket.
Duke comes to mind, and
Jim Duke.
Jim Duke. Sorry,
Jim
my
Duke, Margie Flint, Rosemary Gladstar is like I've only done one herb walk with her, but it was amazing. So I have shelves of herbal books and people who I just adore. And yeah, I just feel really grateful that I've had that blend of the science and the energetic herbalism and the traditional herbalist perspective as well. And I try my best to blend them together and to give everyone a really diverse yet integrated herbal studying experience.
Yeah, absolutely. You get that. That is exactly what you'll get if you sign up for Ashley's program, which I encourage you to do. If this is the kind of thing that interests you, you won't regret it. It's a fantastic course with someone I absolutely love, obviously, but also like a really, truly fantastic human being and teacher of plant medicine. And if you want to learn more about her, see her work, get to know her a little bit, check out her YouTube channel, Skyhouse Herbs, where she publishes weekly on plant medicine, plant energetics, and also on Instagram, which is Skyhouse Herbs. So the apprenticeship program starts April 24th. I wanted to get Ashley on, brag about her program, turn you guys on to it. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm sure that we're going to see some people from the Nightlight astrology world getting introduced to you and all of your magic.
I would love that. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, everyone. Bye.